Chapter 8. Aidan trekked down the lonely forest road, as far from anywhere as he'd ever been, feeling utterly alone in the world. If it were not for his wood dog beside him, he would be forlorn, hopeless. But White gave him strength, even as grievously wounded as he was, as Aidan ran his hand along his short white fur. They both limped, each wounded from their encounters with that savage cart driver. Every step they took painful as the sky grew dark. With each limping step Aidan took, he vowed that if he ever laid eyes on that man again, he'd kill him with his own hands. White whined beside him, and Aidan reached over and stroked his head, the dog nearly as tall as him, more wild beast than dog. Aidan was grateful not only for his companionship, but for the fact that he had saved his life. He had rescued White because something inside him would not let him turn away, and yet he had received the reward of his life in return. He would do it all over again, even if he knew it would mean his being dumped out here, in the midst of nowhere, on a certain course with starvation and death. It was still worth it. White whined again, and Aidan shared his hunger pains. "I know, White," Aidan said. "I'm hungry too." Aidan looked down at White's wounds, still seeping blood, and shook his head, feeling awful and helpless. "I would do anything to help you," Aidan said. "I wish I knew how." Aidan leaned over and kissed him on the head, his fur soft, and White leaned his head back into Aidan's. It was the embrace of two people on a death walk together. The sounds of wild creatures rose up in a symphony in the darkening forest, and Aidan felt his little legs burning, felt they couldn't go on much further, that they would die out here. They were still days from anywhere, and with night falling, they were vulnerable. White, as powerful as he was in no shape to fight off anything, and Aidan, weaponless, wounded, was no better. No carts had come by for hours, and none would, he suspected, for days. Aidan thought of his father, out there somewhere, and felt he had let him down. If he were to die, Aidan wished he could have at least died at his father's side somewhere, fighting some great cause, or at home in the comfort of Volus. Not here, alone in middle of nowhere. Each step seemed to drag him closer to death. Aidan reflected on his short life thus far, pondering all the people he had known and loved, his father and brothers, and most of all, his sister Kira. He wondered about her, wondered where she was right now, if she had crossed Escalon, if she had survived the journey to Ur. He wondered if she ever thought of him, if she would be proud of him now, trying as he was to follow in her footsteps, trying to cross Escalon too, in his own way, to help their father and the cause. He wondered if he would ever have lived to become a great warrior, and felt deeply saddened that he would never see her again. Aidan felt himself sinking with each step he took, and there wasn't anything much he could do now, except give in to his wounds and exhaustion. Going slower and slower, he looked over at White and saw him dragging his legs too. Soon they would have to lie down and rest right here on this road, come what may. It was a frightful proposition. Aidan thought he heard something, faint at first. He stopped and listened intently as White stopped too, looking questioningly up at him. Aidan hoped, prayed. Had he been hearing things? Then it came again. He was sure this time. The squeak of wheels, of wood, of iron. It was a cart. Aidan spun around, his heart skipping a beat as he squinted into the fading light. At first he saw nothing, but then slowly, surely, he saw something come into view. A cart. Several carts. Aidan's heart pounded in his throat, barely able to contain his excitement as he felt the rumble, heard the horses, and watched the caravan head his way. But then his excitement tempered as he wondered if they could be hostile. After all, who else would be travelling this long stretch of barren road, so far from anywhere? He could not fight, and White, snarling half-heartedly, did not have much fight left in him either. They were at the mercy of whoever was approaching. It was a scary thought. The sound grew deafening as the carts neared, and Aidan stood boldly in the center of the road, realizing he could not hide. He had to take his chances. Aidan thought he heard music as they neared, and it deepened his curiosity. They gained speed, and for a moment he wondered if they would run him over. Then, suddenly, the entire caravan slowed and stopped before him as he blocked the road. They stared down at him, the dust settling all around them. A large group, perhaps 50 people. And Aidan blinked up in surprise to see they were not soldiers. They did not appear to be hostile either, he realized with a sigh of relief. He noticed the wagons filled with all sorts of people, men and women of all different ages. One appeared to be filled with musicians, holding various musical instruments. Another was filled with men who appeared to be jugglers or comedians, their faces painted in bright colors and wearing brightly colored tights and tunics. Another cart seemed to be filled with actors, men holding scrolls, clearly rehearsing scripts, dressed in dramatic costumes, while another was filled with women, barely clothed, their faces painted with too much makeup. Aidan blushed and looked away, knowing he was too young to gape at such things. "You boy!" a voice called out. It was a man with a very long beard, bright red, down to his waist, a peculiar-looking man with a friendly smile. "Is this your road?" he asked in jest. Laughter erupted from all the carts, and Aidan blushed. "Who are you?" Aidan asked, baffled. "I think the better question," he called back, "is who are you?" They looked down in fear at White as he snarled. "And what on earth are you doing with a wood dog? Don't you know they'll kill you?" they asked, fear in their voices. "Not this one," Aidan replied. "Are you all entertainers?" he asked, still curious, wondering what they were all doing out here. "A kind word for it," someone called from a cart to raucous laughter. "We are actors and players and jugglers and gamblers and musicians and clowns," another man yelled. "And liars and scoundrels and whores," called out a woman, and they all laughed again. Someone strummed on a harp as the laughter increased, and Aidan blushed. A memory came rushing back of when he had once met such people, when he was younger and living in Andros. He recalled watching all the entertainers stream into the capital, entertaining the king. He remembered their brightly colored faces, their juggling knives, a man eating fur, a woman singing songs, and a bard reciting poems from memory that seemed to last for hours. He remembered being puzzled as to why anyone would choose such a life path, and not that of a warrior. His eyes lit up as suddenly he realized. "Andros!" Aidan called out. "You're going to Andros!" A man jumped off one of the carts and came toward him. He was a large man, perhaps in his 40s, with a big belly, an unkempt brown beard, shaggy hair to match, and a warm and friendly smile. He walked over to Aidan and put a fatherly arm around his shoulder. "You're too young to be out here," the man said. "I'd say you're lost, but from the wounds on you and that dog of yours, I'm guessing it's something more. Looks like you got yourself into some trouble and found yourself in too deep. And I guess," he concluded, examining White warily, "that it had something to do with your helping this beast." Aidan remained quiet, not knowing how much to say, while White came over and licked the man's hand to Aidan's surprise. "Motley's what I call myself," the man added, reaching out a hand. Aidan looked back warily, not shaking his hand but nodding back. "Aidan is my name," he replied. "You two can stay out here and starve to death," Motley continued. "But that's not a very fun way to die. Me, personally, I'd want to have at least a good meal first, then die some other way." The group broke into laughter, while Motley continued holding out his hand, looking at Aidan with kindness and compassion. "I expect you two, wounded as you are, need a hand," he added. Aidan stood there proudly, not wanting to show weakness as his father had taught him. "We were doing just fine as we were," Aidan said. Motley led the group in a fresh round of laughter. Of course you were, he replied. Aidan looked suspiciously at the man's hand. I am going to Andros, Aidan said. Motley smiled. As are we, he replied. And as luck would have it, the city is big enough to hold more than just us. Aidan hesitated. You be doing us a favour, Motley added. We can use the extra weight. And the extra mouth to feed, called out a fool from another crowd to laughter. Aidan looked back warily, too proud to accept, but finding a way to save face. Well, Aidan said, if I'd be doing you a favour. Aidan took Motley's hand and found himself pulled into his cart. He was stronger than Aidan expected, given that from the way he dressed he seemed to be a court fool. His hand, beefy and warm, was twice the size of Aidan's. Motley then reached over, hoisted White, and placed him gently in the back of the cart beside Aidan. White curled up beside Aidan in the hay, head in his lap, eyes half closed in exhaustion and pain. Aidan understood the feeling too well. Motley jumped in, and the driver cracked the whip, and the caravan took off, all of them cheering as music played again. It was a jolly song, men and women plucking harps, playing flutes and cymbals, and several of the people, to Aidan's surprise, danced in the moving carts. Aidan had never seen such a happy group of people in his life. His whole life had been spent in the gloom and silence of a fort filled with warriors, and he wasn't sure what to make of all of this. How could anyone be so happy? His father had always taught him that life was a serious thing. Was this all not trivial? As they proceeded down the bumpy road, White whined out in pain, while Aidan stroked his head. Motley came over, and to Aidan's surprise, knelt by the dog's side and applied a compress to his wounds, covered in a green salve. Slowly, White quieted, and Aidan felt grateful for the help. Who are you? Aidan asked. Well, I've worn many names, Motley replied. The best was Actor. Then there was Rogue, Fool, Jester. The list goes on. Call me as you will. You are no warrior, then, Aidan realized, disappointed. Motley leaned back and roared with laughter, tears streaming down his cheeks. Aidan could not understand what was so funny. Warrior, Motley repeated, shaking his head in wonder. Now, that is one thing I've never been called, nor is it something I have ever wished to be called. Aidan furrowed his brow, not comprehending. I come from a line of warriors, Aidan said proudly, sticking his chest out as he sat despite his pain. My father is a great warrior. I'm very sorry for you, then, Motley said, still laughing. Aidan was confused. Sorry? Why? That is a sentence, Motley replied. A sentence? Aidan echoed. There is nothing greater in life than to be a warrior. It is all I've ever dreamed of. Is it? Motley asked, amused. Then I feel doubly sorry for you. I think feasting and laughing and sleeping with beautiful women is about as great a thing as there is. Far better than parading around the countryside and hoping to stick a sword in another man's belly. Aidan reddened, frustrated. He had never heard a man speak of battle in such a sense, and he took offense. He had never met anyone remotely like this man. Where is the honor in your life? Aidan asked, puzzled. Honor? Motley asked, seemingly genuinely surprised. That is not a word I have heard for years, and it's too big a word for such a young boy. Motley sighed. I do not think honor exists. At least, I've never seen it. I thought of being honorable once. It got me nowhere. Besides, I've seen too many honorable men fall prey to devious women, he concluded, and others in their cart laughed. Aidan looked around, saw all these people dancing and singing and drinking the day away, and he had mixed feelings about riding with this crowd. They were men who were kind, but who did not strive to lead the warrior's life, who were not devoted to valor. He knew he should be grateful for the ride, and he was, but he did not know how to feel about riding with them. They were certainly not the sort of men his father would associate with. I shall ride with you, Aidan finally concluded. We shall be travelling companions, but I cannot consider myself your brothers in arms. Motley's eyes opened wide, shocked, silent for a good 10 seconds, as if he didn't know how to respond. Then, finally, he burst into laughter that lasted way too long, echoed by all those around him. Aidan did not understand this man, and he did not think he ever would. I think I shall enjoy your company, boy, Motley finally said, wiping away a tear. Yes, I think I shall enjoy it very much.